La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buongiorno e benvenuti a questo incontro.
Good morning, welcome to this meeting. The title is European Construction Site. Welcome to our speakers. And I'd like to inform you that Vice President, Deputy President of the European Parliament, Pina Picierno, from the Democratic Social Group, Socialist Group, could not be here due to some family reasons. Pina Picierno couldn't be here and sent us a short message that I'm going to read soon. So now I'd like to introduce our speakers, and we will have one speaker online, starting from Antonella Sberna, Vice President of the European Parliament in the Conservative area. And then Massimiliano Salini, Vice President of the European Popular Party Group, and then Carlo Fidanza, Head of Fratelli d'Italia Delegation of the ECR Group, and then Nicola Procaccini, Co-President of the European Conservatives Group. And I'd like to thank Antonio De Caro, who is President of the MV Commission at the European Parliament, who is connected online. It's from the Democratic Socialist Group. Welcome. So what is the topic of this meeting? Well, we would like to talk about the new term of the new mandate of the European Union, and we will talk about one of the topics we often deal with here at the meeting. So with the European elections, we realized that the European Union, as well as having different political parties represented, obviously, it is also representative of different European countries. So being political representatives at the European Union means that you need to have the ability to relate yourself not just with people who have different opinions on some tangible problems, but also people with different cultures. Europe is such a huge source of richness. So we would like to start from this. That is to say, this difference and the fact that each one of you represents Italy, our country, in a different way. And these are so big opportunities You know, usually the European regulations are generated by this work dealt with by different people with different background, different political parties and different countries. So now I'd like to read the message by Picierno, who's sorry not to be here today. Well, the meeting has always been an important chance for European and Italian growth. The title of the meeting today very well describes the historical time we are experiencing. And David Sassoli also liked to talk about building sites. A building site is a place where people work, but it is also a way to join together different forms of intelligence and willingness. Strengthening the Union, its institutions, its foreign politics and defense strategies is something very important. Considering that we want to defend liberal democracies. Europe has to be the objective and also the protagonist in the world. But we have to overcome its limits, which are quite apparent. And now I'd like to start from Massimiliano Salini. Well, welcome everybody. So, starting from the question, how is it possible to collaborate and to build, considering how complex our context is? There's a lot of, there are many differences from the political point of view, but also national point of view, of course, because, well, we have different countries, of course, undoubtedly. The current 27 member countries are 27 countries that have many similarities, but also many differences among them. Of course, the similarities prevail, but of course, there are still many differences. And I've been at the European Parliament for 10 years, and of course, I've seen that this is true. And the challenge is very complex. It is difficult and challenging to be at the European Parliament and represent our countries. But in my experience, I've seen that we keep on working together in a fruitful way. The best things that I've learned and that I've seen over the past 10 years, well, the best results we achieved were the result of all the situations where we managed to join forces. We can't just fight our battles in order to defend our own interests. We can't do that. Otherwise, the result will be very, very limited. We manage to be very successful only if we manage to join forces. And sometimes we manage to sacrifice ourselves in a way. We manage to be united. And the more united we are, the more we decide to widen up our collaboration, and the better the results for our country. Maybe not for our political party, but yes, very useful for our country. And, well, of course, I do have my own cultural identity, but, you know, in the world of politics, you have to be able to collaborate, you need to be united, and remember what happens outside. So you can't just focus on your political party. You have to look out of it. And in the past few days, I have lived the meeting. And one of the most frequent topics we're discussing at the moment is the topic of prisons. And I've heard about experiences related to prisons, the private world, the social world that are trying to work in order to improve the conditions on inmates. And this is all based on the fact, of course, that the freedom of people is limited, but the dignity of people has to be preserved, of course. And in order to avoid undermining the dignity of people, of course, the state is not enough. In the social context, there are many, really, there are so many experiences. There are, well, you know, those examples where people use work in agriculture or work in order to give back dignity to inmates, and the state is not able to do it by itself. We know that in prisons, relapses amount to 70–80%. But with these experiences, working experiences, we manage to avoid relapses. So what unites us, what joins us? Well, we have to look out of the political world so that politicians work based on the real situations, on the real life of people. Now the floor to Sberna. So now, well, there's another topic we would like to deal with, which refers to our country and our country as a system. Yes, well, thank you. Thank you to the meeting. Once again, congratulations on this great machine, as I like to call it, that works very well. Thank you for inviting us here to talk about our experience and also receive a very important, very interesting input and insights. You know, the meeting is always a good chance for us to keep on working, receiving these insights, these suggestions coming from different associations, different people, institutions. So thank you again and congratulations. So MP Salini said very true things. In the past 2 months, well, this is my first experience at the European Parliament, even if I have quite a long background in politics. Well, I'm trying to understand if we manage to make progress from the cultural point of view, and if we manage to work inside the European Parliament as representatives of just one country, Italy, even if we have a different political background, even if we belong to different political parties. And so this is what we do. We go to Brussels. We go to Brussels with our different backgrounds and our different experiences, but we have to be just one voice representing Italy. And as we said many times, the member countries are represented in Europe, and what Europe is doing is Europe has to be, well, what Europe should do is achieve those objectives that individual member countries can't achieve. Of course, trying to avoid clashes with the other European countries. Sometimes we make a mistake. We go there and we say, Italy wants this. Well, you know, okay, we go there in order to defend our country, but without hindering or going against the interests of the other European countries. The European Union sets some rules, of course, in order to give us guarantees. The European Union has to be strong and rooted on our values, our ideas. So again, we want to work in order to do good things. This is the challenge. apart from every individual rule, every individual standard, we have to understand what is going to be useful for Italy as a country. This is why we have to work together with the other Italian political parties. It is true, each one of us has been elected by the citizens, but we have to refer to Italy as one country. And this is what we want to do. We want Italy to grow, and if we do that, it will be in the interest of every political party. I believe in the principle of subsidiarity that gives life to all the European treaties. The principle of subsidiarity is what has to be the guiding principle for our work. So we have to be strong, always respecting the rules, the regulations are written at European level, but what we want to do is we want to work for the good of our citizens, respecting the principle of subsidiarity. We have also to try and simplify the paperwork, of course. It would be much easier to have fewer rules, but always having to respect the basic principles. That's fundamental for everybody.
Onorevole Fidanza.
Mr. Fidanza, Antonella Sberna was recalling something because she's in charge of the formation and also because of her, let's say, political training. Thank you very much, and I would like to congratulate you on this wonderful edition of the meeting. And its title is very related to the panel that we are holding. So the title mentions the essence of what is essential. And so, as Antonella Sberna was saying about important things in Europe that we should focus on, I would also add essential. We need to go back to what is essential, because it also helps us interpret the, if what we are going to put into practice is really something tangible and effective. Again, the central topic is how to include the national interest in this international context. First of all, by rehabilitating the idea of national interest, because very often in Italy, we have underlined this point only with a cultural minority. And when underlining it was interpreted as only as something populist, something nationalist, whereas there should be a greater care, so to say, for national interest within Europe. And this is what member states do. So they protect their national interests within this European context, because it is not a crime. It is instead essential to protect the Italian interest in Europe, something that hasn't been done enough in the past and adequately enough. During the integration, there are people that tended to say that the French people and the German people became European, but being French and German, whereas the Italians were only European. So the European dimension was somehow replacing the national dimension for us Italians, and that was the mistake. We need to think that our national interest is something normal to be supported within Europe. And we need to try to match our national interest with others' national interests, and that's the challenge that we have within the European Parliament, that what we do with the other parties. But how can we do this? I think that we need to think at different levels. First of all, collaboration between political forces. And let me quote something virtuous that I would like to mention, especially in this room, where there is also a particular sponsor working in the field of packaging. So we were able a few months ago to work in a cross-cutting way among political forces to deal with a regulation on packaging which was really penalizing our production system. And it may seem weird, strange, but for once we haven't been the ones who were not virtuous enough, but we were the best in the class. In 30 years, we had created a circular economy system based on recycling, thanks to recycling consortiums, for example, and no one in Europe was able to do it in such a good way as we did in Italy. And we had to confirm that we had achieved an incredible results in terms of circular economy, which wasn't true for Northern European countries. So we were able to do it alone, all together, not alone, and within a European context. And that's what we have to do more and more often. We also have to be more proud of what we do and who we are. For those who work in local authorities here, well, you know how important it is to deal with bureaucratic structures, and this is particularly true at the European level. Another thing that we had to do when reaffirming our national interest was also to work with other structures in Europe for them to follow the same logic, share the same logic, and do it openly, because we need to be able to invest in these people for them to grow, to expand within the European structures, which is something that hasn't been done at the European level for several reasons, for political instability, for the changes in our governments. And so these people relied on some foreign aid, some foreign support, because they were able to go on. And so when we see that there is an Italian person working in the European institutions, we need to hope that they work for Italy and not against Italy, focusing on national interest. And the very last thing, and I would like to say hello to Raffaele Cattaneo, who is sitting in the first row. For us, it is very important to work together with local authorities, with territories, listening to regions and local bodies for the subsidiarity principle mentioned by Antonella Sberna to be supported. This principle should be declined both horizontally as an added value of the organized civil society, social economy, third sector, and subsidiary realities, and also vertically. So the national interest should also keep into consideration the specific traits of our territories. Altogether, we fought for more realism to be applied when dealing with polluting emissions and the reforms of a European regulation on this. Because there was a European regulation providing for a drop in emissions that would be too high for the Italian economy and for the area of the Pianura Padana. Instead, we should have an approach to defend at best who we are. And let me add just one little thing. We realize that we don't have one single Europe. We have several Europes, so to say, with specific traits into various areas of Europe, the Mediterranean basin, or the north, where they are more similar to merchants, so to say, and they think of Europe as a platform in globalization. And then there is Eastern Europe, which is still not mature enough, not ripe, so to say. But what is the binding agent? What binds us together? Considering that we have different economic models. It is the essence, the essential traits that bind us together: the cultural identity, the religious identity, the historical identity, our traditions, and our past important achievements, something that we are dangerously renouncing. Thank you. Now, Mr. Antonio De Caro. Thank you very much for joining us online. He represents Social Democrats. And so my question to you is the same, considering what Mr. Fidanza has just underlined. Is the national interest coinciding with various examples? So can it also be a general interest? What is, in your opinion, the challenge that you have to deal with? Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for giving me this possibility. Because, you know, I shifted from local administrator to European member of parliament, and so I had some difficulties in reorganizing my agenda. I think of Europe as Altiero Spinelli and Rossi, what they did with the Manifesto di Ventotene, because the European Union is a sort of guide for those who work at the European Parliament, and we need to work for constructing a European soul, as they used to say, a European soul that was prevailing over national interests with solidarity, equality, social justice. Some people talked about United States of Europe, but they really must be the place where every single specific trait is ensured, but there is a common aim, a common good. I think that the values of the Manifesto di Ventotene should be defended in such a particular moment in the life of Europe and in the life of our country, where we feel closer to Europe. During the pandemic and after the pandemic, I think that Europe has supported us with European funds, with the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, and it was not something taken for granted, because there were countries that were struggling, like Italy. And so we had the opportunity to implement public works, to realize public works and offer better services to our communities. There are gender policies included, or I think of schools for children, or means of transport that are more ecological, environmental friendly, the creation of nursing homes or care centers, parks. I think of what I've been doing as a mayor, and because there has been an incredible opportunity with these resources, 40 billion euros, to improve the quality of life of our communities. And I think that this is a value that we should defend, going beyond our single stances, our experiences, and ideologies. There are topics, themes that we should all support all together. And in this short period as a European Member of Parliament, I've understood that Europe is a place where some strong ideological positions and stances should be mitigated in order to achieve a greater good. For example, if you ask me, would you be happy if Minister Fitto became a representative of the European Parliament? And I would say yes, not only because we come from the same area, but also because working together we've been able to find solutions that allowed us to maintain the funds from the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience. In a few months, there will be the planning of European funds, and I hope that together with the delegation that is at the meeting today, we will be able to work for the things that keep us united to improve the situation in our country and in other European countries, following the philosophy of the Manifesto di Ventotene.
Onorevole Procaccini.
Procaccini, I'd like to ask you the same question. So if you could also talk about the European level and also the local level, and also how can we be united instead of divided? Good morning, everybody. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and also thank you for this opportunity. You've given me the opportunity to observe this reality, the reality of the meeting from the inside. I've always seen it from the outside, and I've always been impressed by this meeting. Thank you, Massimiliano, for insisting that I should come here and not participate online. Thank you. Well, maybe you know that there was another event that is called Atreyu, and it is an event that is quite young. Actually, it is quite politically driven, and it was born thanks to the idea of some people who were very young at the time. One of them was me, another one was Giorgia Meloni. And it was born thanks to the meeting in Rimini. We were so impressed. We admired this meeting so much. This beautiful box full of ideas, of people, of hearts that nourishes the political, the cultural debate in Italy. And well, I must admit that our event Atreyu was born thanks to the meeting. We tried to follow the footsteps of meeting. Of course, it would have been impossible for us. We didn't have the means, we didn't have the money, we didn't have the staff. And so this is how it all started. It was a tribute to the meeting, and I just wanted to inform you about that. And this is also how my political life started. I was very young. I started in the right, in the youth right. So I'd like to thank, by the way, all the volunteers. There's 3,000 young people who are working in order to reach a common goal. So this is, in my opinion, this is the European Union. It is a historical need, first of all. I think that national states, especially nowadays, have the need to stay together in order to do a few things together. From my point of view, for us, and this is according to my political party, well, the European Union has to be an alliance of nations that decide to be together in order to do few but great things together. My feeling is that in the last few years, actually, the opposite has been done. That is to say, the European Union has done many small things and hasn't really worked for the great things. The European Union hasn't worked for the great reasons why we are together. As I said, it is a historical need to be together. And I'm thinking about the geopolitical dynamics at the moment. Obviously, just one country by itself, one nation by itself, wouldn't be able to be at the height, at the level of the other big countries of the world. The Italian right coalition has always been in favor of Europe. We always had the dream of a united Europe. And I'd like to remind you of that because, now those, especially the socialists, they are so much in favor of Europe now, and the former communists. Actually, when the European Union was born, they were against it. They were against the birth of the European Union. When the Treaty of Rome was ratified, all the center-right parties were in favor, while the center-left parties were against it. And so I'm telling you about this because, of course, today we still have different points of view. They're all legitimate, obviously, but they are different. And we keep on supporting the idea of Europe as a confederation. And this was actually the original idea for the European Union. So federation that respects the diversity, the differences of the member countries. Actually, we know that the richness of Europe is based on the diversity of its member countries and diversity of traditions. But at the same time, we're all united by the essential. Essential means culture. Of course, our cultures are different, but our cultures are based on spirituality. So for sure, we are united by culture, and we're also united by interests, common interests. This is a connection between peoples, between nations, and Antonio will certainly reply later on. When people talk about the Ventotene Manifesto, as you can see, I have goosebumps. Because the Ventotene Manifesto was in favor of the abolition of the elimination of nations. And I don't agree with that. I keep on believing that we do need to have another type of dream. That dream that was supported by many generations, that is to say, the dream of a beautiful alliance of peoples that are aware of their destiny and of their past. They now choose to put their destiny in common in order to live a historical adventure together. This is the dream we fell in love with, and this is our dream, the one we are trying to fulfill in our daily life, in the little things. Little things, of course, we still have to cope with laws, regulations, amendments, but it's great, it's beautiful to be at the European Parliament. Of course, as I said, we have many different ideas, but this is the great adventure at the European Parliament. And I would like the public opinion to know more about it. And here I see some friends of mine. I'd like to greet them, Mantovani and Ciccioli. I see them here, but also I'd like to address the public opinion. You know, the more we observe the European politics, the more we discover ourselves. I remember a sentence by the Little Prince that said that real things cannot be seen with the eyes. The essential can be seen only by the heart. Thank you.
Allora, io vi ho preso in parola e proviamo a fare...
All right, thank you. And now let's keep on with this exercise, talking about some topics in order to try and understand what it means to have common points, similarities, but also differences as a source of richness. So, as we heard, and as we know very well, there's still a war at the doors of Europe, and this war makes us wonder: is there any hope for peace? And also, what kind of ideas do you have in terms of defense, foreign affairs, and, well, of course, considering the war that is now taking place at the doors of Europe, and also the economy. The economy is not growing a lot. There are some other superpowers in the world that didn't exist or were not so powerful when the European Union was born. And so do you think that being a European member country can bring up advantages with regard to the Green Deal, for example, the demographic growth, etc.? So now we will start again, starting from MP Procaccini.
Più breve per non rubare spazio agli altri.
All right, so I'll be short with regard to the economy. Of course, the economy is one of the reasons why we do need Europe. I'm thinking about the European common market. The European common market is the main asset we have. It's a single market where 500 million people move around from one place to another, from one country to another. They exchange goods, services, and it is an amazing economic asset that helps our countries develop their prosperity. But at the same time, we have to defend this asset. For example, we have to defend it from dumping or dumping attempts from other geopolitical contexts. Well, we know this is true. This is it. This is reality. Of course, some other nations are trying to get inside the European market with some unfair practices, just like China very often tries to do. Defending the European common market is one of the reasons for the existence of the European Union, but also, you know, defense, common defense, security. These are good reasons for the European Union. Of course, in such a risky, dangerous world like the current one, we need to defend ourselves together. By doing that, we can defend ourselves much better. And we're also defending peace. Peace is the other great asset. It's tangible, actually. We need to keep it tangible. And peace is the main base for our life. And it also has an economic value. Peace is actually many things together. And so if we're able to defend peace, and of course we have to be able to defend peace, which cannot be taken for granted. Sometimes we take it for granted. We think that the world has always been in peace, but it's never been like that. Nowadays, actually, most of the world is in peace, but this is recent. Over the history of the world, it's never been like this. So keeping together and defending peace and justice together, this is another reason why we need the European Union. And also, I'm saying it here in Rimini, this is actually a bleeding wound. You know, I'm talking about the laws of Rimini and the Mediterranean. There's no reason why we should have different laws from the laws that are regulating the beaches in Northern Europe. I don't think that the European Union was born to do that. The European Union was not born to regulate how you make pizza or how you grow aubergine. I think that the European Union has a meaning only if it is able to regulate the main topics. And there's no alternative to the European Union if the European Union regulates these main topics. We have to defend the European Union. Thank you.
Onorevole De
Mr. Icaro, if you want to reply, as Mr. Procaccini said, talking about beaches, about Puglia. Well, there's a different vision, which is legitimate, and it is something that we have underlined during the electoral campaign and that we will deal with in the parliamentary debate. In Europe, there are neoliberalism, but also conservatism. And so the new Europe is different, that with an idea of a social justice and environmental identity. But today we are in a particular situation. On the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, there will be elections. And I don't know if the US will guarantee international peace. China is becoming more and more relevant geopolitically, and there are cruel wars in the world. The International Court mentioned a catastrophic humanitarian situation, and I think that the European Union should once again stick with its founding mission, that is putting together peace, freedom, harmonious development, and be at the forefront of ecological transition, digital transition that have become essential. So the European Union has to focus on social justice, on environmental justice, and on the harmonious development that is being jeopardized. Someone said that any kind of union would be enough. We actually need a union that focuses on the European treaties and its principle, protecting competition, protecting the various dominant powers in the markets, offering citizens public works and public goods, making them engaged and participating in all the activities, but at the same time be at the forefront against climate change and other challenges. So we don't need just an economic European Union, but a European Union with a common politics, with a common defense, holding together different peoples enhancing their specific traits. Once again, being together doesn't mean to eliminate the specific traits, but it means to preserve them, looking at a common aim, a common goal, and a common horizon. Thank you. Honorable MP Fidanza, how is the politics working on these themes? First of all, let me answer Caro and comment on the definitions and adjectives that he has attributed to our political party. Well, I think that I'm not recognizing myself because he mentioned neoliberalism, corporativism. But I think that there is a supreme common good to be preserved now more than ever. And this is real economy, because real economy in the last 5 years has suffered from an excess of ideology to support environmental sustainability. But this was an ideological exaggeration because, you know, the social justice of an ecological transition that is like a burden only for families, only for entrepreneurs, business people, with you know, the closing of so many companies working, for example, in the automotive because they do not produce electrical vehicle. Well, I think that this is not socially just. This is not fair. There's a new season that has opened up with the invasion of Russia in Ukraine. And for decades, we have been lingering in this idea of an impossible war. But we realized that it was a mere dream, in a way. Mr. Caro referred to the American elections. We can have different ideas and different expectations, but I think that, well, if Trump won, there wouldn't be such a problem for Europe. We should be realistic because we can share what Trump says or not. But when Trump says that the Europeans should bear the burden of their peace, of their defense, I think that he is right. It's something that we have to come to terms with because we have too often delegated our defense to others and brought European Union on a path of integration, completely sacrificing defense. The Berlin Wall was knocked down, and we immediately thought that belonging to the Western culture would have meant to have peace and serenity, but this is not like this anymore. And so there are two aspects. First of all, the political aspect, and this makes us go back to what I've said at the beginning, to what we've said at the beginning. But what should we do? We should rediscover the sense of European mission, the sense of the European role. What are we as Europeans in the world? Are we just like a platform in globalization? Are we those who defend abstract values? Or are we those who defend the European values that are tangible and that can be turned into real geopolitics and politics for defense? We need to be like that. We need to be this. And in order to do this, we need to go beyond this sterile debate on something that people say very often, going beyond unanimity in the European Council and have majority. I think that this is just one of the various things at stake. Because if we do not solve the problem of the mission of Europe and the role that it needs to have in the world, we can even make changes, but if we don't work on this, we won't solve the situation. If we went backwards, thinking of what happened in France, Great Britain, and the idea of intervention in Libya with the removal of Gaddafi and with the new spur of instability and what happened later with immigration, human trafficking. So if at that time we had a different decision organism, what would have majority decided? Maybe we would have avoided a decision that caused a very big damage. And at that time, the problem was the decision, the choice. And that's also today's problem. Choosing comes first and before mechanism. As European Union, we gave quite compact responses with the invasion of Ukraine. But how can we not be compact and united in guaranteeing our defense? So we need an industrial for common defense. But in order to do this, it is not enough to take the single balance sheets for defense of Spain, Italy, and put all of them together in Europe. No, that's not common defense. That's not real common defense. All over the last decades, Italy, France, European Union have developed different industries that are excellent and that they compete with each other. So if you think of France and the concept of defense, of foreign policies, and what they aim to do in their country for the European sake, it's going to be difficult to work in a combined way. It's not easy. And if you look at what's happening concretely, our defense industry creates joint ventures with British, Japanese, Australian companies, rather than with France or with Germany. And so that's the situation. Our defense industries are not in line. They fight on the market. And so this is against integration. So it is not enough to talk about defense, common defense. We need national interests to find their right position and then decline it in the best way at a political level. It's complicated, but it's very urgent because tomorrow we will be told, you have to think of your own defense. But we won't have that tool. So I think that this legislature should focus on this, because otherwise it would be very difficult to have a common funds, financing instruments to develop this kind of defense. We know that we have to do it today, but we know that there is no money to do it from the point of view of European institutions. And so we need to be supported by national markets, but they need to combine their interests. And that is the greatest challenge, in my opinion, of the next 5 years.
Onorevole Sberna.
Honorable Sberna, about these two themes, about realism. It is essential, and it helps working on particular things and on big themes at the same time. How can we work on these two things? in your opinion? Well, first of all, as far as economy is concerned, I think that the Union should make a reflection. Other speakers have already underlined it. I said to do big things without imposing too strict, too rigid rules to member states. If you think of the Green Deal, which is particularly important for the economic sustainability, well, we cannot think that we can apply the same rule in Scandinavia or in a medieval town in Italy. At the moment, from an energy point of view, some things are sustainable for some countries and not sustainable for others. So this rule is created in a shared way with the parliamentary sharing, but applying it to member states means applying it differently. And so it creates competition among states, and it penalizes some states. Think of a medieval tower in a medieval town of the center of Italy. How can energy efficiency be dealt with in the same way as what happens, for example, in Denmark? The resources of the European Union are not enough to, deal with the energy efficiency of a small medieval town in Italy. And so the burden will be on the shoulders, so to say, of families and households. So some very complicated rules like these would create inequalities. And how can technological development be dealt with? Digitalization and technologies are really rocketing. And so the situation is very different compared to 5 or 10 years ago, and we need to keep this into consideration. The former parliament had already launched a regulation, given some guidelines on the use and access to AI. And why am I mentioning this? Because AI is a very big, a huge opportunity that should be implemented within the companies, because we cannot think that there is a hyper development of AI to the detriment of the workers. We need to do whatever we can to apply it sensibly in the current reality of companies, of business people, of social life, of associations, of third sector, because if we don't do this, AI will not give efficiency, but will give only disorientation. And what should the European Union do? We should do this. European economy should be relaunched, and let me say that it should be relaunched within this context, in particular considering that there is this aging population. It's a big problem that will totally crush us. So considering the future perspective, we should reinforce birth rates and the demographic growth in Europe, because the more we can prosper, the more economy will prosper. Because, it may seem bad to make this sort of connection, but that's reality. And so the principles that we are all talking about should be applied in the best way by this new European Commission. As far as defense is concerned, I go back to what I was saying earlier, because I'm deeply convinced we need to think that Europe is big. It was created in a moment in which peace and common market were essential. As Nicola said earlier, these two words are not, words that were chosen by chance. The European Commission focuses on what needs to be done by considering these two principles and peace should be maintained thanks to defense, because, peace is prosperity, and in order to guarantee peace, we should work on immigration, on what happens at the borders of Italy, Europe, of Italy, Greece, and Spain, because these are the borders of Europe, and we need Europe to keep this into consideration. When Giorgia Meloni took von der Leyen into Lampedusa to see the borders of Europe, that was an important thing, because that's European border, not because we want Europe to deal with all of this. Italy will do its part, but Europe should also do something, because guaranteeing peace, guaranteeing common defense with a series of actions that are not different in one nation or the other, but should be actions, common actions for all the member countries, for a Europe that give the freedom to member states to do what they need to be in line with their specific traits, and each member state should be allowed to do it for the good of economy. Peace, stability, defense, however, need to be guaranteed by Europe, because it is essential that Europe plays a strong role, and men and women like us working in this context need to focus on their values and on everybody's values. And we should take a little step backwards in order to take 2 steps forward, because we need to be aware of the fact that being moderate and work for the interest of our country within the European context is the key for interpretation that all the people should consider, and we should consider in our work every day when we sign documents, directives, regulations, because these are the tools that we should use to comply with the principles that we have. Otherwise, we're all there in Brussels not to work for the good of everyone. And the contribution that we can make today, this meeting, but also for the future, is to become aware of the international reality where we are working, and use the tools that are in line with our values in order to give our children, our grandchildren, better world compared to what we have found. And this requires the constant commitment of politics and of all the countries that are here represented. Thank you.
Onorevole Salini, quali sono questi?
MP Salini, so what are the 2 steps forward we should do? The strength of our country, also from the economic point of view, is actually shown by what happened after the Second World War. And we can't forget about it. That is to say, our country decided that we wanted to be part of a wider community. Our companies started flourishing immediately as we went out of the Italian borders. So if we want to better understand our strengths, especially from the manufacturing point of view, first of all, is that our economy is rich because we managed to go out of the borders. We accepted a wider horizon. Because otherwise, well, that wider horizon was supported. Sometimes it was endangered, but it was hindered, but it was supported by harmonization policies, ideal with the industrial world. And I know very well that without the European Union that harmonized the technical standards, very often we complain about it, but without the European Union harmonizing the technical standards, the Italian industry wouldn't have been able to export anything, and we would have lost thousands and thousands of jobs if we still had technical specifications and standards that are different from the German ones or the Spanish, the French ones. This is why, in practical terms, we need to know our economy. Of course, we need to get inside our companies, know who they are, what they do, what the potential markets are, etc. And then secondly, we should be aware that the European Union today is not enough anymore, not even the European Union. In order to keep our competitiveness very high nowadays, so if we want to be competitive, Europe is not enough. The first reason why we should ask for, well, more commitment is we should try and understand what is going to keep our connection between the United States and Europe. We need to have Europe and the United States to be together, and we need to defend the bond between us. Biden and Trump made the same mistake. They have isolated the American economy from the European one. So we don't want to hold their election campaign, obviously. We need to understand our European priorities and needs. And Nicola and Carlo, you know very well, we've been collaborating on this for many years. For example, in the with regard to anti-dumping rules, etc., we have the problem of the Chinese extra production that is invading the European market. In order to win against this, and in order to overcome this problem, is that we will need to sign a serious good agreement with the United States. So we don't want fake self-sufficiency models. You can be autonomous and independent only if you create and you only if you reach the right alliances, fruitful alliances. And then there's another topic, of course, the topic of defense and, of course, peace. The origin of the European Union. The European Union was not born for institutional reasons, but actually it came from the bottom, from the European people who wanted to have peace. How can we create those conditions based on the authentic principle of the European Union? And allow me to say, just like Nicola said, respecting the words of a colleague, Icaro, I'd like to say that of course, we need to defend the Mentotene Manifesto, but not only that. We need to defend the European countries and also private property. And we also need to understand the current historical context. But the main point, the heart of the European Union is not just based on bureaucracy, but actually the European Union wants to create a community based on the value of peace. So how can we maintain peace? Well, in practical terms, we have to renounce or give up one part of our sovereignty. If we want to have a common defense, we have to put more money in the European budget. And, this shouldn't be just for Italy or for Bulgaria, with a huge gap between us and countries with a different condition like Germany. We have to accept once and for all that the European budget is not 1% of the GDP, the European GDP, but it has to be a real budget. And we need to engage our resources to make sure that this is a real, practical European Union. So let's renounce to have a few things in our budgets, and let's put the migratory policies and the energy policies as part of the European policies, and they will be supported by the European budget. I think this is the only way to go back and to recover the real spirit of the European Union when it was called European Community. European Community, this is the right word. That is to say, a very realistic, healthy way to say that what the Gasperi said, what unites us and not what divides us. So what unites people is exactly what allows states to be together. That is to say, that desire for peace the European Union was born for. Thank you. Thank you. I will take it seriously, obviously. So this is not just for those who work in politics, but actually this is a commitment for the entire population. During this discussion, we've seen that there are differences, different ideas, different attitudes, but well, you know, dialogue is at the base of richness. We need to have a constructive dialogue, and very often, instead, dialogue is converted into violence, as we have seen just out of Europe. So, meeting Compagnia, delle Opere, and would like to continue working on it. We would like to keep on supporting politics and politicians that have been elected at the European Parliament. We would like to continue with this discussion also in the next few years in Brussels with our involvement, direct involvement. We will continue with this dialogue on these essential topics. And of course, we will keep you updated. We'll keep you posted, not just at the meeting, but also during the year. Thank you again. Thanks to our guests, Icaro, who is connected online. Please, a big round of applause for him, since he's the only one connected online. And then MP Picierno, we wish you all the best. We hope your family problems will be solved soon. Thank you to the other speakers. I'd like to remind you that here at meeting you can find the desks Donate Now in order to support our meeting, and you will find our volunteers there, so you can donate now. I'd like to also remind you that today, where we keep on wondering how is it possible to build dialogue and peace, after listening to Cardinal Pisaballa at the opening speech, the meeting has decided to give one part of the received donations received to the emergency in the Holy Land. Thank you.
La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?